Hi, Chris. Hello. Thank you very much for joining us today at the summit. We have known each other for some times and even met several times before. I closely follow the important work you lead at the Ocean 14 Investment Fund, and which is, for me, unquestionably one of the most significant funds in the global blue economy. So I deeply appreciate your contribution. With your permission, I'd like to dive in and ask you some questions that we are always grappling with. For
Sure.
me, someone who has been deeply involved in the blue economy for over a decade, I've identified few significant barriers that, despite the existence of technological solutions, still struggle to find viable businesses models. Issues such as plastic pollutions, invasive species, environmental monitoring, which without strong business structures and paying customers, this remained in the realm of impact investment. What do you think is needed to develop sustainable and profitable solutions in this area? And what role do you see for investment funds like Ocean 14 in tackling these issues?
So, firstly, thanks very much for having me. I'm sorry not to be there in person, but a very busy travel schedule at the moment. But I hope the conference is going well. Yeah, so I'm the founding partner, one of the founding partners of Ocean 14 Capital. I think, what's different about Ocean 14 Capital is that we very much focus on growth equity, so investing in the existing industrial base. And I think, that's the real opportunity that there is for this transition to make successful, really successful, economically successful and impactfully successful businesses. How do we help these businesses with the transition? And what that transition might be, as you mentioned, bringing in new technologies or new innovations into these businesses to help them. So, for example, a lot of aquaculture industries out there that have been quite slow to adopt all of the innovations in data and in AI, whether that's precision feeding, it's lice detection, or it's better, more efficient processing. So there's a huge opportunity there where actually you can invest in these existing industries and help them with capital, help them with operational knowledge, and help them with the new innovations and technologies that we're seeing in the more early stage, and bring those into the existing businesses to help the transformation. And the kind of real unique opportunity that we see within the blue economy is this convergence where the businesses that are the most impactful and sustainable are tend to be and end up the ones that are the most valuable. So there's the real opportunity to help and support these businesses on that journey.
Right. I wanted to ask you that, investing in blue economy is often involves in balancing risk and rewards. And how do you balance financial returns with the environmental issues of your investments? And what do you consider the biggest risk in the sector?
I think the biggest risk is that there is not enough capital to transform the blue economy, because if we don't have enough capital to transform the blue economy and ensure that this is a sustainable and regenerative blue economy, we then won't have a healthy marine ecosystem. And I think we all know in this room that if we don't have a healthy marine ecosystem and a healthy ocean, then we have absolutely no chance of mitigating the climate crisis and protecting humanity. So that's the biggest risk. And that's very much something at Ocean 14 Capital that, we want to be the conduit to that capital so that we can really attract the billions that are needed in order to actually invest in the blue economy to make it a sustainable and regenerative blue economy. We really see this as, the most important investment thesis of all time. So that's vital. That's the biggest risk that we're trying to help. And therefore we need, other vehicles as well that can help attract this money and invest in the area. In terms of making it a little bit more granular down to companies, I think the risk is that a lot of these companies, won't get the capital because there isn't enough capital, and that we often need to really support the companies on the journey, so that they need supports in innovation in technology and sales and marketing, to actually help them on this transition. So I think a risk that the capital won't come, and a risk in the necessary transition that needs to happen. And then, all of the other issues that you'd expect in other businesses that, similar risks, but you're operating in water.
It's really complicated and involving a lot of risks.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what do you see as the most important challenges, as the most significant opportunities in the blue economy over the next decade? Since most of our audience here in the summit is investors and startups, what advice would you give to those who are looking to enter the blue economy? And how can they better align with the goals of impact-driving investments like Ocean 14?
So I think, biggest risk and opportunity. I
Gotcha.
think, food systems, right? Let's talk about food for a minute here. Big agriculture and big food are causing, probably the most environmental damage on Earth than any other industry, right? They're responsible for huge amount of deforestation. A third of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from big food companies. They're responsible for a huge percentage of pollutants and runoffs into biodiversity, whether that's in rivers, on land, or in the ocean. So they really are, having a huge destructive impact on our natural world. And that is a massive problem, right? So if we can change that, then we really have an opportunity to help mitigate the climate crisis. On the other side, those same companies are responsible for the massive diabetes and obesity crisis that we're having because people are eating shit, basically. They're eating processed food with too much sugar and too many chemicals grown with, terrifying degrees of pesticides, all of that stuff. So you've got damage to the physical environment and damage directly to human health. Blue foods is, an absolutely key answer to that. If you are farming fish and fishing sustainably in the right way, you have the opportunity to create incredibly healthy, rich protein without damaging the environment, right? If it's done sustainably and done regeneratively, aquaculture is the most efficient, sustainable protein that you can create. You can have systems for RAS, farming salmon on land. You can have tilapia, which is a fish that eats plants. You can have so many efficiencies to actually make this protein sustainable and be a huge player in ensuring food security, but not damaging the environment. And then that is providing protein, which is very healthy for human consumption. So we really need to think about how we can invest in and scale blue foods. And that requires, investment in aquaculture, land and sea, requires innovations, new technologies, new systems, government support, private support, better debt facilities. Fisheries, how do we make fisheries more transparent? How do we bring data tracking into fisheries to make, precision fishing to take out the unsustainable practices? And then we need heavy investment in alternative fish proteins. So investing in ways that you can feed farmed fish alternatives to wild fish, because often you're creating farmed fish and you're creating that by stripping the ocean of huge amounts of wild fish to turn that into fish meal to feed farmed fish. And that is, an environmental disaster. So, new forms of proteins, whether that's insects or it's, turning gas into protein or other innovations in that area. So we see that as a huge opportunity, blue foods. And then the other side is protecting and restoring the marine ecosystems through innovations in stopping plastics, for example, get in the ocean, and then protecting the marine and the flora of the ocean. And that's very much what Ocean 14 Capital looks at in terms of its investment thesis, those two areas of food security and protecting marine ecosystems. So for the investors in the room, I think, the blue economy is incredibly exciting. It's underinvested in. There's great opportunities to make money and do good. Look at the funds in this space, look at the incredible innovations that are coming, And, many investors that are looking at wanting to do something in climate, they want to invest in climate solutions. The best solution for that is a healthy ocean. So there's many areas, the areas that I've just discussed, which we're focused on for Fund One, but then, looking at the opportunities in energy, the opportunities in shipping, the opportunities in sustainable tourism. There's a huge, huge opportunity in a $3 trillion economy that employs hundreds of millions of people and is absolutely ripe for transition and investment. So investors invest in the blue economy, technologies in new companies, great that you're focusing on the blue economy, because as I said, it's the most important investment thesis of all time. So, do keep pursuing the investors, approach funds like ours, and hopefully get your funding and scale your businesses.
Thank you very much. And maybe before we finish, we would be happy if you can share with us one of your recent successful investments. It could be in the plastic pollution or in aquaculture.
Yeah. So at Ocean 14 Capital, we, on our Fund One, we've now made 14 investments. So Fund One, we raised 201 million euros, and we've deployed about 100 million of that thus far. The portfolio is made up of, aquaculture, fisheries, plastics, carbon, nature-based solutions. I think, one of the most successful investments we've made is a company called SciAqua. It's a leading genetics company in shrimp. So the shrimp industry is growing very fast. Will be a $50 billion industry by 2030. One of the challenges with shrimp farming is shrimp don't have an immune system. So often the farming practices are quite challenging because you don't know whether or not your brood stock are going to die. So therefore, often you're using more land, more water, more feed to get the yield that you need to have a successful farm. So what SciAqua does is it provides the farmer with a brood stock which will be resilient to any current viruses that there are at that time, which means that the farmer needs to use less water, less land, less feed, and will have, economic and job security. So therefore, we are enabling the efficiency of a shrimp industry to have much less environmental externalities and provide, economic benefits for the farmers. And that company is doing extremely well. We took over it about 3 years ago when I think it was losing about 500,000. It's now making about 3 million EBITDA.
Wow.
It's growing very quickly. It's now the largest provider. We just bought another company with the cash supplies of that company through that company to expand the genetics that we could provide. And yeah, it's doing very well. So we're very pleased with that.
Wow.
And the rest of
Sounds really promising.
the rest of the portfolio is performing well, and we're excited about the future at Ocean 14.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Criss, thank you so much for being
Pleasure.
here with us today. Thank you for sharing your insights, and most importantly, thank you for the inspirations and for your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.